The world had fallen silent. No planes in the sky, no radios. No human armies left to scream. The Galactic Empire had crushed everything. They came like a storm from the stars, their ships blotting out the sun, their weapons burning through cities like paper. Earth's bravest warriors, soldiers, pilots, defenders, fought for every inch of land. But in the end, courage was not enough. The Empire's fleets burned the skies. Its armies swept through continents. Oceans boiled. Mountains cracked. The last stronghold fell 3 days ago. The invaders celebrated their victory. They believed they had killed Earth's strength, but they had not touched its rage. In the northern forests, far from ruined cities, an ancient silence lived. No birds sang. No wind blew. There was only the dark whisper of the trees. Deep beneath the roots, under an old stone structure forgotten by time, something stirred. A heartbeat echoed, slow at first, then faster. 2 lights shone in the darkness, like the eyes of sleeping beasts opening after a long slumber. A door, sealed for centuries, cracked open with a low growl. Dust fell like ash. Cold air rushed out. 2 shadows stepped into the night. The first walked like death itself, silent, precise, colder than winter. This was Baba Yaga. To the world, he was a myth. To those who knew him, he was the last thing an enemy ever saw. The second moved like a storm. His shoulders were broad, his eyes burned with an old fire. He was known by one name only, the Boogeyman. Together, these 2 names had once brought fear even to Earth's enemies. But centuries ago, they disappeared into the dark. Some said they died. Some said they were sealed away. Now, they were awake. Above the forest, an Empire scout ship floated in the night sky. Its scanners swept the ground with pale blue beams, reading every tree, every root, every breath. No life detected, the machine said in its flat, robotic voice. Inside the ship, the alien soldiers laughed. Their kind had conquered 50 planets. They thought Earth was just another trophy. Then the scanner blinked. Red, warning. 2 life forms detected. Unknown origin. High threat level. The laughter stopped. The captain stepped forward. His silver armor reflected the blue lights of the control room. He had destroyed worlds before. He didn't believe in ghosts. Send a ground team, he ordered. If someone survived, they won't for long. The ground team arrived minutes later. 10 soldiers in heavy armor stepped into the foggy forest. Their boots squelched in the wet earth. The air was cold, too cold. Their breath came out as white mist. This place feels wrong, one soldier whispered. Shut up, another barked. It's just Earth trash hiding. They moved deeper. The fog grew thicker. Trees rose like tall, dark towers. Their lights barely reached 5 meters ahead. Then something shifted in the dark. A single figure stood between the trees. Tall, wrapped in black, his head slightly tilted. No sound. No weapon raised, just watching. Target spotted, the squad leader hissed. He raised his rifle. The others followed. But before the first shot could be fired, the figure vanished. In the next heartbeat, the squad leader's weapon was gone. His armor dented inward. He dropped without a sound. Screams filled the forest. Contact! Contact! Someone yelled. They fired into the mist, but their bullets found only trees. One by one, lights on their suits went dark. One by one, their voices vanished. The forest became silent again. On the command ship, the captain watched the monitor. The 10 green dots of his soldiers blinked out, one after another. No gunfire, no explosion, just silence. His chest tightened. This wasn't a normal enemy. Who is down there? He whispered. A voice from his crew answered slowly. Not who, Captain. What? The last camera feed flickered alive for 3 seconds. In that blurry image, 2 figures walked side by side. One, a shadow, silent like death. The other, a burning storm of muscle and rage. The captain didn't know their names. But the fear that spread through his men told him something old had returned. On the forest floor, Baba Yaga stood over the broken bodies of the soldiers. His movements were clean, almost surgical. He had not spoken a single word. The boogeyman stepped forward, boots pressing into the mud, his hands still dripping with alien blood. They thought Earth was weak, he said softly. voice like gravel. "They will learn," Baba Yaga replied in a whisper colder than the night. Far above them, more Empire ships were moving into position. They thought this was a cleanup. But what they were about to face were not soldiers. They were predators, and predators don't lose. In orbit, the captain clenched his jaw. "Send the second wave," he commanded. "Full squad. Don't underestimate them." But even as he said it, a strange feeling grew in his chest, a feeling he had not known for many years. Fear. Down below, Baba Yaga adjusted his hood. The boogeyman picked up a rifle from the dead soldiers and crushed it like a twig. "Let them come," the boogeyman growled. Baba Yaga said nothing, but the shadows around him seemed to grow darker. This was not a war anymore. This was a hunt. The Empire thought Earth was finished, but Earth had its own monsters. And tonight, the hunt had begun. The second wave arrived before sunrise. 5 dropships roared through the clouds, black as smoke. Each carried 20 Empire soldiers, the best fighters they had. Heavy armor, strong weapons, cold hearts. They had crushed many worlds. They believed Earth would be no different. But this was not a normal war anymore. This was a hunt. The soldiers landed near the forest edge. Their boots sank in the wet ground. Mist swirled like ghost hands around their legs. Above them, the trees stood tall and silent. The forest seemed alive, breathing slowly. "Thermal scan," the commander ordered. "Nothing," the scout replied, checking the monitor. "No life forms." That was the first lie the forest told them. Deep inside the forest, Baba Yaga moved like a shadow. He stepped between trees like water slipping through cracks. His face was hidden beneath his hood, his breath quiet. His eyes were fixed on the enemy approaching. Beside him, the boogeyman crouched, his hand resting on a fallen tree. His muscles were still, but every sense was awake. He could hear the enemy's boots crunching, smell the metallic stink of their armor, feel the cold air tremble as they came closer. "They bring more," the boogeyman whispered. "They bring prey," Baba Yaga answered. His voice was calm, dead calm. The commander of the Empire soldiers raised his hand, and his men spread into a formation, lines of armor moving between the trees. The forest grew darker. Their lights flickered. "Stay sharp," he barked. The first team disappeared here. No mistakes, but it was already too late. The first man at the front suddenly stopped. Something was wrong. He looked down. There was no ground beneath his feet. Before he could scream, he fell into the pit hidden under the leaves, sharp spikes waiting like hungry teeth. His body didn't even make a sound when it hit. Panic flashed through the team. "Trap!" someone yelled. Then the lights went out. Baba Yaga stepped from the shadows like a ghost. The commander saw only a glimpse, a black hood, cold eyes, and a blade flashing once like silver lightning. A soldier fell without a cry. The boogeyman struck from behind. He moved like a storm, breaking through armor like it was paper. One soldier swung his weapon, but the boogeyman caught it, twisted, and snapped the man's neck like a dry branch. They were not fighting an army. "They were hunting it! Open fire!" the commander screamed. Blue plasma bolts ripped through the trees. Branches exploded. Smoke filled the air. But Baba Yaga was already gone. He moved like wind. He slid through shadows, never where they aimed. One soldier turned and saw nothing but the cold tip of a blade. The boogeyman didn't dodge. He charged. Plasma burned his shoulder, but he didn't stop. His roar shook the trees. He grabbed a soldier, lifted him off the ground, and slammed him against a tree so hard the trunk cracked. The Empire had never faced something like this. In the control ship high above, the captain watched the feed from the soldiers' helmets. The screen shook, screamed, and then went black one after another. "This is impossible," an officer whispered. The captain's hands tightened into fists. "No," he said. "This is war." He opened the comm line. "All ground teams, retreat to defensive positions. We are sending in drones." The surviving soldiers ran through the forest, but the forest didn't let them go. A flash of movement, a whisper, a scream. One soldier tripped on a wire and triggered a trap. A tree snapped like a whip and threw him into the air. Another turned to help but never made it. A dark figure pulled him into the fog. The commander gasped for breath. He could hear their voices but couldn't see a thing. The enemy wasn't fighting in open ground. The enemy was everywhere. Baba Yaga appeared behind a group of soldiers. He didn't rush. He moved slowly, like death itself, cutting them down one by one, silent, precise, unstoppable. The boogeyman crashed through the last line like thunder. His hands were blood and steel. His eyes burned with something far beyond anger, something ancient. The commander raised his rifle with shaking hands. "What are you?" he whispered. The boogeyman's face twisted into a cold grin. "The nightmare," he said, and then the commander's world went dark. In less than 10 minutes, 50 Empire soldiers were gone. No gunfire could save them, no tech, no training. Only 2 humans had done this. Legends, monsters, Earth's final revenge. Up in the orbiting warship, the captain stared at the empty feeds. One by one, every soldier's signal had vanished. "What are these creatures?" one of his officers whispered. The captain didn't answer. He knew. This wasn't a rebellion. This was a reckoning. "Send the hounds," he ordered, "and prepare the airstrike." In the forest, Baba Yaga wiped his blade clean. The boogeyman leaned against a tree, breathing hard but steady. "They will send more," Baba Yaga said quietly. "They should," the boogeyman growled. "I'm just getting started." In the distance, a low rumble echoed across the hills. The Empire was bringing in heavier forces, but Baba Yaga and the boogeyman didn't flinch. They were Earth's last ghosts, and the hunt was only beginning. The sun rose slowly over the blackened sky. Ash hung in the air like fog. The forest that had been silent for years now whispered again. But this time, it wasn't with fear. It was with war. High above Earth, the massive warship of the Galactic Empire prepared its next attack. The captain stood on the command deck, watching the battlefield from orbit. The last 2 waves of soldiers had vanished into the forest like insects into a fire. No signals, no bodies. Nothing left. He clenched his fists. "2 humans," he whispered. "Just 2. Around him, his officers avoided his eyes. They had never seen anything like this before. Whole squads erased in minutes. No sign of weakness. No sign of mercy. "Deploy the Storm Legion," he ordered. His voice was cold and sharp. The Storm Legion was not like the other troops. They were not just soldiers, they were killers. 10 massive gunships dropped from orbit, their engines screaming through the clouds. Lightning followed their path, shaking the sky. Each ship carried armored beasts, soldiers born for war. They did not laugh. They did not fear. They landed on the forest edge like thunder hitting the ground. The commander of the Legion stepped forward. His armor was dark red, his eyes hidden behind a black visor. A scar ran across his metal jaw. He was built like a wall, and behind him stood hundreds more. He spoke into the comms. "We end this today." In the forest, Baba Yaga stood on a stone ledge, looking toward the horizon. The wind touched his hood gently. Beside him, the boogeyman cracked his knuckles. "They bring their monsters," the boogeyman said. Baba Yaga tilted his head slightly. "Then we will hunt monsters." They had no army. No tanks, no ships. But they didn't need any. They were enough. The Storm Legion entered the forest in perfect formation. Their boots slammed against the earth like drums. Drones flew above them, scanning the shadows. "Thermal scan," one soldier said. "Nothing," the drone answered. But the veterans knew better. The forest was alive, and it was watching them. The first drone suddenly lost its signal. Then the second. Then the third. "Something's jamming us," the commander barked. Then came the whispers, soft, cold, not human. The soldiers spun around, searching for the source. But there was nothing there. Baba Yaga was already among them. He moved faster than the eye could follow. His blade cut through metal like water through cloth. One soldier fell, then another. No sound, no warning. Only death. The boogeyman came from the opposite side like a storm breaking free. He didn't hide. He charged. The ground shook under his boots. He slammed into a line of Legion soldiers, sending them flying like dolls. Their heavy armor didn't help. He ripped a gun from one soldier's hands and broke it in half like a stick. The commander turned his head. "Form up!" he shouted. The soldiers fired their plasma cannons. The forest exploded with blue light. Trees shattered. Earth burned. But when the smoke cleared, Baba Yaga wasn't there. He was behind them. He dropped from the trees like a shadow. His blade slid into the commander's second-in-command before the man could even turn. Panic began to spread like fire in dry grass. The captain watched from orbit. His screen showed chaos, soldiers falling, sensors breaking, the forest swallowing the Legion. But then something new appeared, an energy spike, huge, deep inside the forest. The captain narrowed his eyes. So that's where they're hiding? He opened a channel. Target that signal. Airstrike authorized. Back in the forest, Baba Yaga wiped the blood off his blade. He looked at the boogeyman. The man was breathing heavily, his fists covered in blood and dirt, but his eyes burned like fire. "They are not done yet," Baba Yaga said. The boogeyman nodded slowly. "Good." A sudden sound ripped through the forest. A high, sharp whistle. The ground trembled. Then the sky opened. Dozens of plasma bombs screamed down from orbit. The trees lit up like fire. The forest floor exploded in flames. The air turned hot and bright. Baba Yaga and the boogeyman moved fast. They didn't panic. They ran like wolves through the burning woods. Trees crashed down around them. Ash burned their skin. But they didn't stop. A massive explosion threw the boogeyman into the dirt. He rolled, groaning. Baba Yaga pulled him up by the arm. "This way!" Baba Yaga hissed. Behind them, the Storm Legion burned. The captain didn't care. To him, the soldiers were tools. His real goal was to flush out the legends. The forest was dying. Fire spread everywhere. The night was gone. All that remained was orange flame and black smoke. But in that burning chaos, the two legends moved like ghosts. They reached an old stone bunker, hidden under layers of roots and earth. A secret from a war long ago. The boogeyman slammed the heavy door open. They stepped inside. Cool air wrapped around them like water. For the first time in hours, they had cover. Inside the bunker, old lights flickered to life. Maps, weapons, old human tech. All of it had been left behind when Earth's armies fell. Baba Yaga placed his hand on the wall. The lights turned green. "It still works," he whispered. The boogeyman laughed low. "Good. Let's give them a storm of our own." Baba Yaga stepped toward an old console. A red screen blinked on. Automated defense system. Active above the burning forest, old satellites began to wake up. Rusty, ancient, but deadly. The captain on the warship frowned as alarms screamed around him. "What is that?" he barked. "Sir," an officer stammered. "Earth's defense grid. It's activating." Down in the bunker, Baba Yaga's face was still hidden by the hood, but his voice carried a sharp edge. "They burned the forest," he said softly. "We burned the sky." Outside, the first defense cannons hidden in the hills opened fire. Blue energy bolts slammed into the Empire's dropships. One exploded in a flash of light. Another spiraled into the ground. The captain shouted, "Shields up! Shields up!" But it was too late. Earth was not dead. Earth was fighting back. The boogeyman grinned through the smoke. "Let them come," he growled. Baba Yaga's eyes narrowed. "They already have." Above the burning forest, the Empire's fleet turned its guns toward the planet. In the underground bunker, two legends prepared for the next storm, and somewhere in the ashes, Earth began to wake up. The flames outside the bunker still burned bright. The forest that had once been silent now looked like a battlefield from the old wars. Smoke, broken trees, ash floating like snow. The air was heavy, hot, and full of the smell of fire. Inside the underground bunker, the old lights flickered, but the walls stood strong. This place had been built in the age when Earth feared war. No one had thought it would ever be needed again. Until now, Baba Yaga stood before the control panel. His hood cast a dark shadow over his face, but his eyes burned with cold focus. The boogeyman paced back and forth behind him, his fists still stained with the blood of the Empire's soldiers. Far above them, the Empire's warships circled like vultures. They had lost 2 dropships to Earth's hidden defense grid, but they weren't retreating. They were preparing something bigger. Baba Yaga slowly pressed a switch on the control panel. A low hum echoed through the bunker. Dust fell from the ceiling as ancient machines came back to life after decades of silence. System wake-up. Activating Earth Defense Network. Signal broadcasting! Old maps lit up on the screens. Lines appeared across the globe. Hidden bases, satellite weapons, underground cities. Earth may have fallen, but not everything had died. Boogeyman stepped closer, staring at the glowing red map. "We still have this?" Baba Yaga's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "We always did. The world just forgot." Back in orbit, the Empire's captain stared at the rising energy readings on his screens. "Sir," an officer said nervously, "Earth's old systems, they're coming online. We're detecting activation from multiple points across the planet." "Impossible," the captain growled. This world was dead, but the numbers kept climbing. The captain slammed his hand on the table. "Prepare orbital bombardment. Wipe everything below." In the bunker, a deep rumble shook the floor. "They're coming again," Boogeyman said. His voice was low but steady. Baba Yaga raised his head. "Then we wake the rest." He pressed another button. Across the underground halls, heavy doors began to unlock with a thunderous clunk. Rows of cryopods, old emergency pods from the war days, flickered to life. Their cold mist filled the room. Inside some of them, figures began to stir. Hundreds of years ago, when Earth realized it could not win a full-scale war, it hid its last hope underground. Project Iron Dawn, soldiers, scientists, engineers, frozen in time, waiting for a signal. That signal had just been sent. The first pod opened. A woman in old combat armor gasped for air. She looked around, confused and shaking. Baba Yaga was there, his hood still up, silent like a shadow. Where am I?" she whispered. "The war," Boogeyman said. It never ended. Above ground, the Empire's forces landed again. This time, not hundreds. Thousands. Gunships screamed through the smoke. Mechs with burning red eyes marched through the burning trees. The captain wasn't taking chances anymore. "Erase everything," he commanded. No survivors. The Storm Legion moved forward like a steel tide. Their heavy boots crushed the ground. Their plasma cannons glowed. But they didn't know that Earth had just started to wake up. Inside the bunker, the woman from the pod stared at the glowing red map. More pods opened. More soldiers rose. Some were weak. Some were confused. But all of them remembered one thing: the day Earth fell. Baba Yaga walked through them without speaking. But everyone in the room felt his presence. Some of them whispered his name like a myth. Baba Yaga. Boogeyman leaned against the wall, a cold grin on his face. "Welcome back," he said to them. "We have a war to finish." The ceiling shook again. The Empire's ground forces were getting closer. Explosions echoed through the forest. The soldiers underground looked at Baba Yaga, waiting. He didn't need to yell. He didn't need speeches. He just said 4 words. "We fight for Earth." The bunker roared with the sound of people preparing for battle. Old rifles were pulled from crates. Heavy turrets were mounted. Drones were reactivated. For the first time in years, Earth had an army again, a small one, but one that refused to die. Outside, the first wave of Empire mechs reached the bunker entrance. Their metal feet crushed the ash-covered ground. Their red eyes scanned the area. Then they heard it. A single beep. Before they could react, the ground under them exploded. Minds that had slept for decades awakened in a single second. Mechs were thrown into the air like toys. Fire lit up the hill, and out of the smoke came the Boogeyman. He didn't sneak this time. He charged. Plasma fire hit him, but he kept going. He grabbed a mech's leg and ripped it free like it was made of glass. Soldiers fired at him, but their bolts only made him angrier. From above, Baba Yaga moved through the shadows, silent and deadly. His blade flashed like lightning, cutting down enemies before they even turned. Behind them, the newly awakened Earth soldiers joined the fight. Their weapons were old, their armor scarred, but their spirits were sharp like knives. The Empire had brought thousands, but Earth was alive again. Up in the warship, the captain slammed his fist on the screen. His plan to crush 2 legends had turned into a war against an army he didn't know still existed. "Send everything," he barked. Burn them. All of them. But another officer shouted, "Sir, orbital shields are failing! Earth's satellites are firing at us!" The captain turned to the window. Bright blue streaks of energy were rising from the planet's surface. One of the Empire's smaller warships exploded in a blinding flash. For the first time, the captain felt a cold weight in his chest. Fear. Baba Yaga looked up at the sky through the smoke. Explosions flickered in the clouds like stars being born and dying. The boogeyman stood beside him, blood on his hands, fire in his eyes. "This isn't over," Boogeyman growled. Baba Yaga tilted his head slightly. "No," he said softly. "It's only beginning." Around them, more Earth soldiers rose from the bunker. Guns ready, eyes hard. The world the Empire thought was dead had awakened. The ground shook like thunder. The sky burned red from plasma fire. Explosions flashed like lightning across the horizon. Forests turned to ash. Hills broke apart. The Galactic Empire had stopped underestimating Earth. No more scouting teams. No more quiet hunts. Now, they brought war. From orbit, the captain's warship gave the signal. Thousands of drop pods tore through the clouds, glowing like falling stars. Troops, mechs, drones, tanks, all coming down at once. The Earth shook beneath their weight. This was the Empire's final move. Crush the resistance, end the legends. Make Earth silent forever. But the planet they thought was weak was no longer sleeping. Deep underground, the bunker trembled. Cracks appeared in the ceiling. The old lights flickered. The awakened soldiers of Project Iron Dawn were preparing. They wore their dusty combat gear like they never stopped fighting. Baba Yaga stood at the center of the command room, Hood casting his face in darkness. The boogeyman strapped on a piece of old armor, his massive hands tightening the metal plates like it was nothing. On the screens, red dots multiplied fast. Too many. Too close. "They're coming with everything," Boogeyman said. Baba Yaga gave no answer. He simply picked up his blade, the same blade that had cut down hundreds of enemies in silence. Outside, the roar of engines filled the air. Imperial tanks rolled through the burning forest. Heavy mechs stomped the ground like giants. Drones swarmed the skies like black clouds. The Storm Legion led the charge, their red armor shining in the firelight. "Push forward," their commander barked. "Bury them alive!" But waiting for them, hidden in the smoke and ruins, were Earth's defenders. They were outnumbered, but they had something the Empire didn't. Will Boogeyman was the first to step onto the battlefield. He walked through the burning mist with no fear, his heavy boots cracking the ground. Bullets and plasma bolts streaked past him, but he didn't slow down. A tank aimed its cannon at him and fired. The blast threw up a wall of fire and smoke. The soldiers cheered, thinking he was gone. But then, he walked out of the flames, burned armor. Bloody knuckles, eyes like fire. The boogeyman grabbed the tank's barrel with his bare hands and ripped it off. He slammed it into the tank's body. Metal screamed. The machine collapsed like a broken toy. The Empire soldiers stared. For a moment, even their hearts hesitated. On the other side, Baba Yaga moved like a whisper in the wind. While Boogeyman drew the fire, Baba Yaga slipped between shadows. A mech scanned the area with red eyes. It saw nothing. Then a black hood appeared behind it. The mech's pilot didn't even have time to scream. Baba Yaga's blade slid through the metal. One clean cut. The machine fell to its knees. Then another. Then another. He didn't speak. He didn't roar. "He simply hunted! Flank them!" the Empire commander shouted. Dozens of troops rushed in from the east. Plasma fire filled the air. But they were met with Iron Dawn. The soldiers who had been sleeping for 100 years. They might have been old, but they fought like they had never left the battlefield. Snipers picked off drones from the sky. Ground teams planted old explosives that shook the earth. One mech stepped on a hidden mine and vanished in fire. The Empire had expected a weak planet. Instead, they met a world full of ghosts, ready to fight. High above, the captain clenched his jaw. His warship scanned the battle. He saw mechs falling, soldiers disappearing, entire units vanishing in the fog. He slammed his fist on the console. "These are humans," he growled. They should be nothing, but fear was crawling into his chest. These weren't just humans. They were the monsters of Earth, the legends, the last breath of a dying world that refused to die. "Send the Titan," he ordered. The Titan was not a normal weapon. It was the Empire's walking fortress, a machine the size of a skyscraper, armed with enough firepower to level cities. It dropped from orbit like a meteor, smashing into the ground with an explosion that shook the world. Soldiers cheered. The captain smiled coldly. "This ends now." Baba Yaga saw the Titan first. It rose from the dust like a mountain of steel. Its glowing red eyes scanned the battlefield. Its cannons began to turn. The boogeyman stood beside him, breathing hard, blood on his hands. But when he saw the giant machine, his grin widened. "Finally," he growled. "Something worth hitting." The Titan fired. A plasma beam screamed through the air, ripping the earth apart. Trees turned to fire. Rocks exploded. Dozens of Iron Dawn soldiers were thrown into the air. The ground split like glass. The boogeyman charged straight at it. Baba Yaga vanished into the smoke. The battlefield turned into chaos. Empire troops advanced under the Titan's cover. Explosions painted the sky orange and black. But the boogeyman ran like a beast off its chain. Plasma fire hit him, burned him, cut him. But he didn't stop. He jumped onto one of the Titan's legs, climbing like a wild animal. Bolts of energy exploded around him. He punched through the machine's armor with his bare fists. Meanwhile, Baba Yaga appeared near the power core. Silent, focused, deadly. Inside the Titan, alarms blared. The pilot shouted into the comms, "Something's on the hull!" "Where?" "Everywhere!" Then the lights went red. The boogeyman ripped open a hatch and dropped inside the machine. Screams echoed through the metal halls. He tore through the guards like a storm through dry grass. One swing, one punch, one broken wall. At the same time, Baba Yaga reached the engine room. He placed an old Earth explosive on the glowing core. "Time to sleep," he whispered. The two legends jumped from the Titan just as the bomb went off. The explosion tore through the night. The ground shook like the sky itself cracked. A giant ball of fire rose into the air. The Titan, the Empire's fortress, was gone. The soldiers on both sides stared at the flames. The Empire troops, once confident, now felt something cold in their bones: fear. The boogeyman stood on the battlefield, chest heaving, body bleeding. Baba Yaga stood beside him, hood unmoved by the wind. Behind them, Iron Dawn raised their rifles and screamed one word into the sky. "Earth!" The roar shook the night. The Empire had brought war. But Earth had brought hell. Up in orbit, the captain stared at the burning Titan, his jaw locked. His soldiers were dying. His best machine was gone. For the first time, he whispered something he never thought he'd say. "They're winning." The night sky burned. Pieces of the Empire's Titan rained down like falling stars. Fire spread across the battlefield. The earth was cracked, the air thick with smoke and ash. The Empire had sent everything to crush Earth. Its soldiers, its mechs, its war machines. But it hadn't expected to face legends. It hadn't expected to face a planet that refused to die. Baba Yaga stood on a broken ridge, his hood still over his face. Boogeyman stood beside him, breathing hard, blood and smoke covering his body. Behind them, what remained of Iron Dawn formed a hard, silent line, tired, wounded, but unbroken. Above them, the captain's warship floated in the sky, black as death. It was the last wall between Earth and victory. The captain stared down from his bridge. His knuckles were white. His soldiers were dead or fleeing. His Titan was gone. His fleet was shattered, but his pride wasn't. "We are the Empire," he growled. "We don't lose to savages." "Sir," one of his officers whispered. "Maybe we should retreat." The captain's cold eyes cut through him. "No, if this world refuses to bow, we burn it." He turned toward the central console. "Prepare the planet breaker." A hush fell over the bridge. The planet breaker was the Empire's ultimate weapon, a single beam that could erase a continent in seconds. They had used it before on other worlds. Once fired, there would be no second chances. But Baba Yaga and the boogeyman were already moving. "Look at the sky," Boogeyman said. His voice was rough but calm. "He's going to finish it." Baba Yaga tilted his head, silent as always. The captain thought he had time. He didn't. Iron Dawn rushed forward through the burning field. Their boots pounded the cracked ground. Drones flew above them, firing at the Empire's remaining troops. Explosions painted the night red. "Push to the command ship," Boogeyman roared. His voice echoed like thunder. Baba Yaga had already disappeared into the smoke, moving toward the Empire's landing zone. His blade was drawn. The Empire's warship began to charge the planet breaker. Energy lines glowed across its massive hull. The captain watched the meter rise. 30%, 50%. The ground below rumbled. The forest burned hotter. Boogeyman reached the landing zone first. A line of Empire soldiers stood between him and the last shuttle bay. They aimed their rifles at him. Hundreds of red lights locked onto his chest. He grinned. "Good," he growled. "I was worried it would be too easy." Then he charged. Plasma bolts tore through the air, burning into his armor, ripping at his skin. He didn't care. He hit the line of soldiers like a truck hitting glass. One swing of his arm sent 3 men flying. He ripped a gun turret from its base and slammed it into the ground. Blood and metal exploded in the air. Baba Yaga appeared on the other side, silent as death. His blade danced in the red light. Soldiers fell one after another, their screams lost in the roar of the battlefield. The two legends met at the same shuttle bay. Baba Yaga looked at Boogeyman. No words were needed. They both stepped onto the last Empire shuttle. It roared up toward the warship like a burning arrow. 80%, the officer said. "The beam is almost ready." The captain smiled coldly. "Good. Let them watch their world burn." Then alarm screamed. "Unauthorized shuttle." "What?" The captain barked. On the main screen, 2 human figures appeared, walking through smoke like they owned the stars. His smile vanished. "No, not them." The shuttle crashed into the side of the warship like a hammer. The hull tore open with a blast. Before the fire cleared, Baba Yaga was already inside. His black hood moved through the flames like a shadow. Boogeyman followed with a roar that shook the metal walls. Empire soldiers tried to stop them. Plasma fire filled the corridors. But this was their last mistake. Boogeyman smashed through armored guards like they were made of clay. Baba Yaga moved like a phantom, cutting down anyone who tried to stand in his way. They were not fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to end it. Security breach. "They're on the lower decks." "Stop them!" the captain shouted. But no one answered. His soldiers were dying faster than he could give orders. Baba Yaga moved toward the main reactor. Boogeyman fought his way to the bridge. The captain could either fire the planet breaker or save his ship. He hesitated. Just for a second. And that was enough. Boogeyman kicked down the bridge door with a sound like thunder. Empire officers scrambled back, drawing their weapons. The captain turned to face him, drawing his sword, a blade forged from alien steel. They stared at each other in silence. "You think you're a legend?" the captain hissed. Boogeyman grinned. "No, I'm the end of your story." They clashed. Sparks filled the air. Steel against steel. The bridge shook with every blow. The captain was fast, trained, deadly. But Boogeyman was something else. He didn't fight like a soldier. He fought like a storm. The captain lunged. Boogeyman caught the blade with his bare hand. Blood poured from his palm. But his other hand crashed into the captain's chest like a hammer. The alien stumbled. One more punch. Then another, and the captain fell. Meanwhile, in the reactor core, Baba Yaga placed a charge on the ship's main power line. He whispered softly. "Sleep." He vanished just as the first alarms began to wail. "Reactor breach." A dying officer screamed. "We're losing power." Boogeyman dragged the bleeding captain to the center of the bridge. The man gasped, staring up at him. Why fight?" he whispered. Boogeyman leaned down, voice like fire. "Because this is our home." Then the ship shook violently. Outside, Iron Dawn forces pulled back as the massive warship's lights flickered. Energy surges danced across its surface. The planet breaker beam, moments away from firing, collapsed in on itself. The captain's final weapon was gone. The ship tilted in the sky, smoke and fire pouring from its wounds. The roar of explosions echoed like thunder through the burning forest. Then, like a dying star, the warship fell. The ground split as the ship crashed into the earth, shaking the world. Fire climbed to the sky. A wall of heat rolled across the battlefield. Boogeyman and Baba Yaga stood on the wreckage, side by side. The captain's voice, broken and weak, came from the ruins. "You can't stop the Empire," he rasped. Baba Yaga lowered his hood. For the first time, the soldiers saw his eyes, cold, sharp, and alive. "No," he said softly, "but we can make them remember Earth." Iron Dawn raised their rifles. Their voices filled the air. "Earth!" The last of the Empire's soldiers threw down their weapons. Some ran. Some simply stared at the two legends standing in the fire. The war was over. Weeks later, the fires stopped burning. The forest grew silent again, but not empty. Survivors rebuilt the bunkers. Iron Dawn trained new fighters. And every night the people looked at the stars, not with fear, but with strength. The Empire had come to destroy Earth. Instead, Earth destroyed the Empire. And it all began when two legends walked again.